Okay, third time's a charm, right?
The American dream is dead. But if I get elected president, I will bring it back. Bigger, better, stronger. Bigger, better, stronger. Bigger, better, stronger. Bigger, better, stronger.
I'm really sorry for how this situation has been handled so far. When I released my first video, I intended it to be just a quick little discussion on the Erin Clover situation. Never in my wildest dreams did I imagine it would turn out to be such a mess. I've completely rewritten this intro like 3 times at this point because I'm not really sure how to start. First, I'll be summarizing the Erin Clover drama again. Yes, again, because I don't want people who haven't seen the first video to be left out on the loop. But if you're looking for a more detailed explanation of what happened, I suggest that you go and check out the first video. Next, I'll be running down all the arguments defending Erin Clover that I covered in my last video and tearing myself a new one because I have an urge to go back in time to strangle myself. And finally, I'll be giving an explanation for my actions. I'm not going to try to justify how horrendously I've gone about addressing everything, but I hope that the explanation will at least clear the air over why everything happened the way it did. Got it? Alright, let's go. Erin Clover, or Sam as the artist is called, is a 26-year-old popular My Hero Academia fan artist, best known for her original character Erin Clover, who she pairs with Bakugo. On May 6, 2021, the first post on Instagram regarding the Erin Clover situation was made. Another few posts would be made following this first one, and anger started boiling in the My Hero Academia community. Since another creator by the name of Yagami Yato had been cancelled recently for sexualizing the cast of My Hero characters, fans started attacking Erin Clover over a leaked Patreon post of an NSFW work featuring Hawks, Bakugo, and Erin. Unable to handle the backlash, Erin disabled her Instagram account as well as her other social media. She kept her Patreon up and continued like this until sometime in late June or early July. Erin came back to Instagram thinking that everything had died down, and Erin ended up making a post on her, at the time, private Instagram account, before deleting it and making a post on Patreon about how she was leaving Instagram for good. Erin has always claimed that her characters were age-dropped versions of the My Hero Academia cast, and denied any wrongdoing on her part. Currently, Erin is posting NSFW on her Patreon, and has refused to acknowledge the situation any further. Fans are split between wanting her to return to her public platform to continue making art, and wanting her gone and ridiculing her with traced images of her art. Did you get all that? Good, because I'm not repeating myself. If you want a more thorough explanation, I'll link my first video in the description. Now, on to the next section. While I disagree with my last video on this, Ponder still does bring up some valid points about how we interpret characters. However, those points are rendered moot when we consider other aspects unique to the situation, that being the show My Hero Academia. I don't think Ponder purposely misconstrued anything during our conversation, but rather I think it simply comes from the lack of having watched My Hero Academia. Let me preface this section with this. Minor characters are not real minors, and I don't intend to treat them as such. Erin Clover is not a pedophile. Please stop throwing that term around so loosely. It's been used so much I feel the real weight of the word has been entirely lost on the people using it. I will be deleting any comments I see calling her a pedophile. In addition to this, the harassment has gone completely overboard. I understand that people are angry and want to feel like they're holding someone accountable, but harassing Erin Clover does nothing but muddy the already clouded situation. Knock it off. Right. Cool. With that out of the way, like I mentioned in my first video, this situation is very fragile. When it comes to aging up characters, a lot of people have a lot of polarizing opinions. What I argued in my last video was that Erin doesn't see the My Hero cast as teenagers like I do, and like a lot of other people do. And therein lies the problem. Have you ever heard of the expression, "your right to swing your arm ends at the tip of my nose"? It's basically saying that your freedom to do as you please only extends to the extent that what you're doing isn't harmful to other people. And yes, the internet doesn't have to cater to you. If you don't like gore art, stop asking the artist to stop posting and find ways to block gore art. If you don't like NSFW art, find ways to block it instead of asking the artist to take it down. However, in this situation particularly, I don't think Erin is blameless. Erin might see Bakugo as an adult, but the way he's drawn doesn't reflect that. You see, how we interpret fictional characters is a very complicated process. We tend to leave out undesirable parts to our interpretation to form our own narrative in our head. And while I focused on their designs and their mannerisms in the last video, I focused only on those two. I completely ignored what was already in front of me. Unlike real people, fictional characters are designed for specific purposes. In the industry, this is especially true. No part of a character is just there because the author felt like it. It's there for a reason, and the same logic applies to characters' ages. Deku was originally intended to be an adult. However, that was changed. He was deliberately rewritten as a teenager, which means Horikoshi wishes to tell a story that somehow involves themes of the youth and younger generation. This is where people start to argue, oh, but Stream, how do you know Erin would pick up on that theme? We're not in English class here. You can't expect her to pay attention to the color of the curtains. And you would be right. If My Hero's themes were subtle, because they're not, they hit you over and over again in the face to the point where it's impossible to ignore the fact that these characters are supposed to be teenagers. Ignoring the plot for now, just design-wise, most of the students are shorter than their teacher Aizawa, as well as the fact that the characters are in their uniform for a very good chunk of the show. Uniforms which are more often than not associated with junior high and high school. And sure, these are things that you could argue are just left out of someone's interpretation of the characters. But there's more. Throughout the story, the fact that these characters are young are driven into your skull again and again and again. The first Nomu incident where the students had to rely on their teachers to save them. The dynamic between All Might, Deku, Bakugo, and to an extent Shoto. The exam arc. The hero killer stain arc, where Deku, Ida, and Shoto are scolded for acting without a license. The training camp arc, where Bakugo literally had to be saved by the adult heroes, and which the kids were explicitly told they couldn't participate in because they were too young and didn't have their hero permits. And on, and on, and on. The show is not subtle about the fact that the cast are teenagers who need to be guided and protected by the adults. If the viewer is young and has no solid grasp on age as a concept, and connects deeply with the characters in the show, they might not fully register the characters' ages at all times. Because being young and needing an adult is something that kids deal with every day of their lives. But even as a freshly turned adult watching this show back, I feel a very severe disconnect between myself and the characters because I no longer require an adult to look after me. I am now an adult. That disconnect means whatever part of myself I see in that character has been dulled down significantly, which means I don't bond with them as much, which means I would never have any intention to age them up in the first place, despite having been introduced to this show as a minor. I'm not saying adults can't enjoy shows about high schoolers, please don't twist my words. There could be a multitude of reasons why Erin clings onto these characters, none of which I will be theorizing because it makes no difference to the argument I'm about to make. If Erin truly did view these characters as adults, why has she kept them in the same school with the exact same design? These current designs should be linked with their canonical ages in the show because it's hammered into your skull over and over again. It doesn't help that Erin is trying to mimic Horikoshi's art style either, because these designs are also tied to their canonical ages to much of the public. And because they look the same as they do in the show, it would be easy for an adult or a child to look at her art and assume them to be minors. Yes, Erin has put her NSFW work behind a paywall, so that only adults would have access to it, but many people find it disturbing that Erin is catering towards adults who are sexually attracted to the designs of characters who are supposed to be, and very explicitly shown in the show to be, minors. What makes it worse is that Erin depicts these characters as still partaking in a lot of high school activities, like prom and Halloween parties. Yes, there are characters who are adults that are still in high school, like the DDLC gang, but they are adults who just happen to still be in high school. It's not the same as when you age up a character and keep them in high school. Especially not when you also draw porn of them, because it will appear to a vast majority of the public you are simply using the excuse that they've been aged up to sexualize these characters who are supposed to represent minors. And just because you say something isn't what you intended it to be, it doesn't change how it comes off. Erin is a public figure, so we can't treat what she does as if it only affects a small number of people. She has a lot of influence, and she hasn't been the best about using that influence because of how she presents her art. When you're aging up characters, your portrayal of said characters are just as important as your intent. The argument that, oh, well, if you can't age up characters to sexualize them, then why aren't you going after the Jeff the Killer fangirls for romanticizing a killer? Yes, there are people who romanticize murder, and that should be discouraged, but what's happening there, and what's happening with Erin Clover, is very different. You see, it's more socially acceptable to ignore or rewrite negative elements of a character, such as them being a murderer. But age is not an objectively negative trait, and so there's more objection to changing it. Additionally, no one has actually been killed, so there's no disrespecting of a victim's loved ones. Now, for those of you who are romanticizing real-life killers, you are absolutely disgusting. Minor characters represent minors in media, and are, more often than not, treated as minors in their respective worlds. And so when these characters are sexualized with their canonical designs that are more often than not inexplicably linked with their canon age, the most widely accepted interpretation is that whoever has drawn the art has sexualized a minor character. No matter what Erin may have intended, her art has most commonly been interpreted as her sexualizing minor characters. Because there is so little change to their design, it becomes impossible to assume they are any age but their canon age. and aging up at that point just seems like an excuse to get away with sexualizing minor characters. Oh, but Stream, why is it a big deal anyway? They're not even real minors. You're right, they're not. I'm not going to start advocating for their rights, but these characters represent minors, and being okay with minor characters being sexualized contributes to the problem of sexualizing minors in media. I don't think it should be normalized to look at a character who is supposed to be a minor and feel the need to sexualize them. I think that's creepy as fuck. In this culture, if you find a character or person to be desirable, likable, then they must also be sexy. Sexualizing everything has become the norm in our culture, and it has extended to such an extent that people are sexualizing characters who are meant to be minors without batting an eye, and even defending doing so. The defense, it's just fiction, it won't affect reality, doesn't hold true for everyone, especially not for minors who see themselves in these characters. If enough media portraying these characters with their current designs are shown in sexual situations, it would be easy for minors to get it mixed up that they are expected to act this way once they hit this age because the media is depicting them doing so. We learn from our surroundings, that's how we grow. Anyone who isn't a minor should not be sexually attracted to characters who are written explicitly to be minors. And let me repeat that again. Anyone who isn't a minor. This means minors are free to see each other sexually as much as they please, so long as they are within the same age group. Minors don't need to see media where they are portrayed with some inherent sexual appeal in mind. Yes, they should be encouraged to experiment with their sexuality, but adults shouldn't be a part of that experimenting, and that includes seeing characters who are supposed to be minors being sexualized. Portraying minors being sexual without sexualizing minors is a very difficult task, and one that Erin Clover has failed to do. There's only so much that our brains can fill in when we're interpreting characters, especially when the source material repeatedly affirms things about these said characters, like their age. And even if Erin chose to ignore critical parts of the story that bring these characters' ages to the forefront, the public at large will not ignore them. She has not made enough of an effort to make it clear that these characters are older, and so it falls on her that people have interpreted these characters to still be their canonical ages, and have gotten angry at what she's chosen to do with these characters, especially since she has such a large audience. Ponder, I'm not sure if you're watching this, but I respect you a lot, still. I respect your opinion, and that's what led me to trip and fall over my own shoelaces. I've seen many times in a variety of situations where creators fuck up and refuse to admit it, and I didn't want to be like that. I still don't, of course, but I think my eagerness to believe that I was in the wrong since you disagreed ended up with me making a video that I didn't agree with. I'm still glad we talked because it's given me more perspective on how the other side sees things, and though I've seen things from your point of view, I don't agree with it. I'm sure there are a million ways you could tear apart the arguments in this video, but this is where I stand on the issue. I hold no ill will towards you, but I have to disagree with you here. The situation has taught me a lot, and the lesson I think was the most important was to not just blindly follow people you may admire. I may have wanted to believe what I was saying was true, but I think deep down I didn't agree with it, and so I sounded like I was dead on my feet. I'll still do my best to keep my ears open just in case I'm wrong in the future, but I'll also be doing my best to make sure while I'm researching that I'm not wrong. If I do make a mistake, I will obviously make a follow-up video to correct what I got wrong, and I'll take the time necessary to consider the other side's argument before I do, so I won't flip-flop again like I did here. I have a massive audience now, and it's really sunk in for me during this situation. I have a responsibility not to feed people misinformation because you guys trust me that I won't. Thank you guys for letting me have the time to properly piece together all of my thoughts on this, and I hope I won't disappoint you like this again. The Erin Clover situation is messy. There's no shortage of people saying there's no definitive right or wrong because nothing is illegal. And to an extent, they're right about that. But from where I stand, I think what she did was wrong. And I don't encourage what she's been doing. The idea that minors only act like 10-year-old kids should be dispelled. They might not act their age all the time, but that doesn't change how old they are, fictional or not. That's where I stand on the matter, and you're free to disagree with me. I'm not here to police opinions, nor is my opinion the absolute truth. I'm just here to give my 2 cents on situations like this, and I hope that you'll take my opinion as just that. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all in the next one whenever that may be. Bye!